Hey guys, I thought that we would take some time today to wrap up my little comparison series of different versions of the RWS deck that are either vintage or are based off of the Pam A version of the deck. And today we are going to take my Vintage Pam D and put it up next to the next legitimate deck that would come in the publishing sequence. The Blushing Fool. This one is a British edition that comes in the blue box. It has Waddington here on the side here in association with Waddington Playing Card Company Limited. That's a big tell for whether or not you're going to have a blue box Blushing Fool. But obviously you should still actually look at the Fool. As we can see there, he looks like he's had a bit of a rash. He's blushing. I think that it's kind of neat to think about the publication history of these two rider cards. This one, I don't know when it stopped being printed. A lot of people put that date somewhere between 1931 and 1939. Rider themselves claimed 1939. They even put that on the back of their box here, reprinted many times to 1939, and that this is the second edition of their deck, beginning in 1971. We do know that there were more than one printing. We call them more than one edition now. The 4 Pams, 5 if you count Roses and Lilies. The reason there's a huge gap between 1939 and 1971 is World War II. In the bombings that happened in London, the plates that were used to create the Rider Terror deck were destroyed or lost. They have disappeared. They've gone into the ether. They have ceased to be. Rider did not find it financially feasible to recreate those. They had bigger fish to fry at that point in time in their history. So the deck just went into lapse. There was no way to continue to print it. At the time, Great Britain had some laws in its books precluding the importation of occult paraphernalia. Tarot cards fall under occult paraphernalia. So if a deck was published in Germany or Switzerland or Australia or South Africa, it could not be brought into the boundaries of Great Britain. It wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s that law got lifted. Sorry, I've got the coronavirus. So that's why there's that big gap between 1939 and 1971. According to some stuff I heard from Waddington, right, the guy who ran Waddington, people had been asking for these tarot cards for quite some time. It was something their mom had had, their grandma had had, some male relative. It's not just women, obviously, who are tarot readers. And this was the deck they wanted, but it wasn't the deck that they could get. So that's why they more or less brought it back. They thought there would be a market. And Waddington's like, hey, you know what? We can actually get these printed more cheaply in Switzerland by AGM and just bring them in. And that's how that deck got revived. When you put these two decks, the D and the Blushing Fool, side by side, there are lots and lots of differences. They did go back to Pam A line work for this, as opposed to Pam D. The line work is a lot sharper, crisper, cleaner. And the coloration tries to honor that of Pam A. Let me just pull my one here. This is from the study deck, right? So you can see that, you know, the blue is the same. They did even try to like keep all the little like line work there, but we've now got 1970s printing and 1970s inks and 1970s colors, and everything is just a lot brighter, a lot pop. So you do lose a lot of the subtle differences. We also lose, let me just get this guy here. Like, there's no more lines and faces. They're just putting that with a flat wash of color. And if we look like this in this yellow area, that's all flat wash color too. If we look here at this vintage one, you can see card through that ink. They literally just laid down less ink to get that shade of yellow. Here, they have a shade of yellow and they're using it. So there is more depth with vintage printings than there is with the contemporary printing. Let's put this guy back. So I think that that's going to be a major difference that you see throughout. Quality wise, this is a bit of a grain of, salt. This is a Pam D printing. This was based off of the sharper Pam A, as was this. So this will look better when compared to the D version. So I think, like, for my money, I do prefer this deck to this deck. But it's still really neat to put the two side by side to just kind of take a quick look and see what you think. So that's what we're going to do, because I've looked at this fool long enough. Got our magician. And there's the world. So if you've never seen these two printings side by side, now you can say that you have, and you can make an informed decision on what you like about each printing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.